Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliott Manning. This week, I'm joined by Kerri Hargreaves. Kerri has had her own business now for a few years, but I'll let you do the intro as to who you are, what you do, and what you're all about.
Thank you. It's great to be on. It's nice to be on the other side, Elliott.
I know. Thank you for having me on yours.
No, you're welcome. So yeah, I'm Kerri and I've had H2 Consultancy is now, we are approaching the back end of our, coming into 2.5 years, just over 2.5 years, I think it is. So we kicked in pre-pandemic. So we actually celebrated our first anniversary as we went into lockdown and as I closed the office and we went home. So it was pretty hair raising, I guess.
What a memorable first year anniversary.
I know, yeah.
So what do you do? Like, what do you guys recruit? What's your specialisms? You know, what's your main area of focus?
Yeah, so for me, I'm still very much an active recruiter and have been throughout the whole of my career. I've never not billed, if that makes sense. I've never not been a recruiter. I've always focused on finance and accounting as my primary area. Since I set up H2, I have ventured into a couple of extra specialisms, which is HR, purely because my clients have needed my support. And I've got a huge network in that area, and a little bit of executive. Predominantly we're permanent here, but we've actually broken into interim, since the pandemic, actually. So we've broken into interim. I've always done a small amount of temporary. And then on the other side, we've got Katie, and Katie's very much an engineering and operations recruiter. And that's been her career. So she's 7-8 years in, I'm 15 years in, and we've both always operated in those markets.
Brilliant.
And as we expand HR, we'll move into other areas, bringing in strength. Yeah, that's the natural way for us.
So what's the main goal here? So do you guys want to be specialists in, these areas itself? Was that always the intention to go through the A&F route, which is obviously what you're specialized in? Have these other areas just come about, as you just said, and, you're looking to now explore them fully to, I suppose, expand the business?
Yeah, I think we'll have a natural expansion. So ready in as we kick into next year, I'm hoping to bring in one additional recruiter that's going to strengthen the brand. I'm a firm believer in being a specialist in your area. My first ever job was in finance. And then I fell into finance recruitment. And I really have an affinity and a really close connection to that area. So it just was natural. And I started my career in a finance agency and I've just built my knowledge from there. And the same with Katie. Her first ever role in recruitment was within engineering operations. And she's just got a massive love for that sector. And I kind of feel that that's something you can't replace. We'll never be a generalist agency. We'll always be a boutique recruitment business that targets specific areas. And I'm going to be really honest, and it probably isn't the same for every business, but that supported our growth in the pandemic. By being so focused.
A lot of firms weren't flexible or, didn't have alternatives, and when there was quite tight and niche in what they do, if their market has been impacted, they're going to feel the effects of it massively. But if you guys have got like different angles to cover, then it works really well. Yeah,
and different angles, but not too far away from our base, if that makes sense.
So you said it's all relative. So it's all collaborative.
Yes. So for example, with me, the HR side, it's very similar to finance in the sense of it's professional services recruitment. They've gone down a certain track of professional qualifications. And naturally, as a recruitment business, we know a lot of HR professionals, so it just felt like it fitted. And for me, that was an area of expansion in COVID. And
definitely.
Katie, exactly. And you've just got to go where the areas suit you. So I wouldn't be able to be an engineering recruiter. That doesn't suit me at all. I'm definitely more connected to a finance, procurement, HR market. Whereas Katie's engineering operations through and through, it really suits her as a person. But even in the pandemic, engineering, we just lost it. It completely went, for several months. And that's when the operations side of Katie's desk really just flew. So the pandemic's been hard, but actually it's strengthened our business from our markets. It really has.
Do you, look, I know, and I've got a recruitment client of mine in tech, and, because of how busy they are in the tech space, a lot of their clients naturally being their go-to contacts were HR and talent acquisition. So they decided to just like expand in that space. And a lot of their clients were like, can you get us an internal person? Can you get us someone to work in our HR team? So it was a natural, progressive area. Do you collaborate with a lot with clients in the engineering and operation roles as well, like from an A&F kind of perspective and HR?
Yeah, so I think that's been the biggest part that I wanted to change when I set up H2. Cool. Was that I'd historically been in businesses where everything was so separate. Recruiters weren't allowed to collaborate with each other across the business. And I knew that we could add so much more value by networking amongst our clients and being able to truly support them from a H2 perspective, so how H2 really is designed is more on a consultancy basis. So we're not just there to be a recruiter. We're not just there to find you the next person. We're consulting on their business as a whole. Obviously in our area of expertise, or I'll bring in an external person, so it's more about adding value across the whole business and not just say from bringing in one person. Does that make sense?
Fine. No, it makes perfect sense. So how many of you in the business now?
So we're only 3, although I say only 3, Elliott, like the pandemic, because we grew so much, allowed us to bring in our third arm, which is Jo. And Brilliant. She has massively helped to support our growth because Katie and I, we were doing everything from the ground up as recruiters, and obviously I was doing everything else in terms of the marketing and all the development of business and running the business internally. So bringing in Jo, she's been able to support us and freeing up our time. We really now feel like we are doing that consultancy role. Brilliant. And not being everything. So we're 3, and hopefully by January we'll be 4 if I can find the right person, because you know how hard it is.
No, of course.
To find the right person.
I'd love to know for you, as a in a new business run, what triggers you to get that hire in? So when do you know that is the right time to bring in number 4, then number 5? How do you plan for that?
For me, I have got a long-term plan for the business, and we're on track so far, as to when I thought the business would be at the point where we were too stretched. I personally know that I'm stretched at the moment, and I'm not being able to do everything I want to do, even from just the internal part, being in your business, Elliott, and being able to step away from it and look at it and the differences that you need to make. So it's really when I see how stretched we are, and that's what I noticed July last year.
So it's not money or you've got like a targeted financial plan of when we hit X amount, that's when we trigger a hire. Some firms do that.
No, I don't think so. I think it's more about the opportunity. So we did, we had a milestone moment a few months ago where we hit a certain amount of money in the bank, and it was fantastic. This is the growth that we projected, that we wanted to achieve. But that didn't change my hiring strategy. It hasn't thought, I'll bring in another, because actually I quite like to protect that money in the bank,
Sensible. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also had the plan that we would be at number 4 as we move into celebrating our 3rd year, which will be March next year. So if I can bring in a 4th person, which will actually be a recruiter this time. Jo obviously works in a support capacity, she's our backbone. And then if I bring in a new recruiter, that's about the growth. And this time I want to make sure, like Katie, I brought Katie with me on day 1.
Okay. Yeah.
Katie had worked for me in a previous business. And this time it's going to be a challenge as to whether I bring in someone I know or I bring in fresh eyes to the H2 business. It's a difficult balance.
Yeah, 100%. But, you can make that work quite easily. And, it's nice to hear that, it's not based on a financial expectation that you're going to look to trigger that higher. If you've got a cash rich bank account and, you've got lots of funds in there, then it should be about, when your market, like right now, everyone's so busy. Yeah. I feel like people really kind of relishing in the opportunity of bringing in more people to support and resource. It's not about, okay, cool. Well, we haven't hit enough, you can't hit those numbers necessarily without,
without the extra resource.
Exactly. Yeah. So interesting to see. So Kerri, why did you do this? What, as a recruiter in the market of, many years, at what point did you think to yourself, I'm ready. This is ready. This is my time.
So for H2, it was about the summer before I set up. So summer 2018. That I knew I was at breaking point in the business I was at. There was a few things that weren't quite going right. There definitely wasn't an eye to eye or a love for the industry that I had with my directors. So I thought, I need to find my next path, but I don't see myself doing it in another recruitment business. There's so much I want to do, but from my own ideas. I want you to be more creative. I want you to be more of a human in terms of the approach that we take, And I was also in conversations with a private investor.
Yep.
And because prior to setting up H2, I had thought about going self-employed back in 2011 when I had my little boy. I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity. In hindsight, though, Elliott, there was a reason why I didn't. My gut wasn't 100% there, and I was only 6 years into a recruitment career. And I think you need a little longer. And I know it works for some people to go on year 2, but for me, I was still quite junior in my career back then. I was a new manager to people. I've learned so much by being in different size businesses, larger organizations to small independent firms. And I think I just found a bit of gumption in summer 2018 and started chatting to an investor that I knew personally, but also could see how he'd grown his business. And we just had some really interesting conversations. And I went down the route of having an investor, but I'm glad I did because he's a great mentor, but also guided us through the pandemic in a really difficult financial time.
Yeah, what was that like? Were you like at a point, because you'd only been in business at that point about a year and a half?
Yeah, a year.
So it's a year. Fine. Were you scared? Were you worried? Did you think that it was going to like completely just crumble?
Yeah, I'm going to be really honest and just say, as we left, Katie and I were in denial for the 2 or 3 weeks before. Definitely, everyone's already saying the market is slowing. I think we were. Yes, I'm glad you said that. Yeah. We were in denial. Our desk hadn't started to slow at all. Our clients were still going. We were still putting offers out to candidates the day that the government announced we're closing. Basically we're closing everyone down. You need to go home, and we just put offers out that day. So that was, those first few weeks. I think there was one day, I think it might have been day 2 working from home, and I did sit and cry with my husband. Yeah. And I just was really honest and just said, I don't know if we'll survive because everything's stopping, and it did stop for 3 months. I think we were April, May, June flat pretty much. Apart from a couple of temp assignments, it was quite flat. So it was really scary. But with my investor support, he really guided me on the finance side. We trimmed everything back that we needed to trim. We cut everything out that we needed to. We paused things, and we just worked really hard. Katie and I've worked through a previous recession in 2008, 2010. We just got our heads down. We spoke to people. We just got our heads down. We spoke to people, and we got through it. But did I think the business would fold? Not from our hard work, not from lack of hard work.
Just the industry.
Just the industry that we were in, and the unknown. Who knew what the pandemic was? We didn't know. It was health, wasn't it? It wasn't like the previous, crash, was it? That was financial. That wasn't like this. It was, no one knew where it would take us. So thankfully, with guidance, and we got there. And some hard work, some really long days.
So one of the questions I've asked other people on the podcast is about, guidance, support, direction, advisory, and that kind of stuff. As well as you've got, the investor that I'm assuming you still work with that supports and guides you. Like, where else do you get your support from? And, how do you get the, I wouldn't say the information, I suppose, how do you get the right guidance outside of that, but from in the recruitment industry?
Yeah, so I think the good thing about having quite a long-standing career in recruitment is that so many of my peers have also been in the industry for the same length of time as me.
Yeah.
Some of them have set up businesses, some of them haven't, and still work for some larger organisations. So I definitely call upon my peers 100%, but I've got a couple of contacts within recruitment that I always call upon if I need some serious high-level advice. Mentors, I would call them now, that I've worked with for years. But then there's also the network that you and I found each other in, that things like that. I never had that before setting up H2, that type of network of business owners, because obviously I wasn't a business owner. That was a godsend for me in the pandemic, just having that network of senior leaders within recruitment, business owners that had either been in recruitment for longer than I had their business for longer, and they're not afraid to share their peaks and troughs, their wins, their fails. You just have to seek advice and not be afraid to admit when something's challenging you Go out there and ask. Everyone wants to help someone, don't they?
Yeah, for sure.
I love being asked for advice, and I used to be scared of asking for advice, thinking that showed failure.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is. I think it's a strength to be able to go out there and say, actually, I need your help. Can I have 5 minutes?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Can we grab a coffee?
It's so helpful. When I speak to so many businesses, it's just like, look, I know that you want to grow and you want to get where you want to get to, but get the support around you. There's always something that you need or would want to ask. And there's just so much more out there that they need to learn and understand that they can do so by speaking to other people in the market, especially those around them. And, obviously during the whole pandemic, for me being in the recruitment network and having that in there, as much as I might not have said anything and, asked the right questions, everyone else was. So it kind of didn't matter because everyone was in the same boat. And it helped a lot, even, when we was doing the whole, I've done the whole podcast thing with, the Hoxo guys, and ultimately just even that networking group of business owners and people that are around you, you just build different contacts and it helps so much.
It does.
Yeah, it's priceless. But what else would you advise anyone else if someone's listening to this and they think, do you know what, I want to set up a business, I'm ready to go, I specialize in maybe accounting, finance, or whatever else, what's the one bit of advice you would give them that you think is going to be the most beneficial to them, or maybe more than one?
Maybe it might be more than one. I think you need to have that network. I think nobody, Elliott, should set up a business without having a client base and a little black book. You need that little black book. You're going to need it. You're going to need people to come to you on day one who actually want to work with you. Our phone was ringing on day one, but that's only because both Katie and I had a massive network.
Yeah.
I think if you're 2 years into your recruitment career and actually, other than being based in a recruitment business and expecting the phone to ring, it won't ring on day one if you don't have a network.
Yeah.
I think you've really got to be a solid recruiter with a background. I really do. That's my personal experience. But I think it's take advice from people externally. If you need the investment because you can't sit there and set up a business and potentially not have any earnings for 6 months, or get delayed on bills being paid for 3 months and then it has a problem with your family, it's got to be the right decision, hasn't it? I think
definitely
for me, having an investor was a positive experience. I know it isn't for a lot of people, but it enabled me to set up the business professionally as I wanted to, with an office straight away, and that guidance where I knew that if there was something going wrong back, on the back internal side of finances, I had someone straight away that could give me the guidance.
I think a lot of people are worried about things like that, about giving away bits of business. And I think ultimately, if you're using your own money, you're a lot more careful. You don't want to spend it. You're going to be paranoid. You're going to be worried. You've got bills to pay, family to look after. When you take an investors money rather, yes, obviously you still have the same thought process about how protective you need to be and careful. But ultimately, if the worst case, the business folds and you're still secure to an extent, and that's why they risk their investment, right?
That's it. That's why they do it, because they, don't get me wrong, no investor wants to lose their money, but they go into every investment knowing that that's a risk, don't they? And they're not going to lose their home if the business folds. I could have lost my home if I put everything into it and the business didn't go well.
Sure.
But I didn't set up H2 knowing that I knew on day one it was going to be tough, but that we would be a success. I didn't expect the success that we've experienced, which is amazing. And it fills me with so much joy thinking about it, but it's been a lot of hard work. And
definitely.
Don't set up your own business if you are not prepared to work harder than you've ever worked before, because you'll need to work longer days,
absolutely,
7 days a week, sometimes most weeks, until your business is in a position where you can take your foot off the pedal a little bit. But I'm not taking my foot off the pedal for a good few years yet, because I want to create a solid, robust business model that's going to continue to grow.
Excellent.
If you think you're going to come in and do flexible working hours every day and not be logged on as soon as you get home, it's not going to work.
No, for a lifestyle business it might, for a little bit of money here and there potentially,
maybe
but then again,
it's
not going to work really if you want more than that, and if you want to make something of it.
I agree. If you want more than a salary, if you want more than the salary that you earned employed, I think you need to put in more.
Definitely.
You need to give it more, definitely.
What's been the hardest thing about, since you set up the business, what's been the most hardest thing about it, separate to the pandemic, separate to that point where, you were concerned? What is the hardest thing that you have experienced running a business?
I think it's about being everybody. So historically in the business, Elliott, you would have a marketing person, you would have an administrator, you would have someone running the day-to-day operations of the business. That's me.
Yeah.
I do all of those roles. However, that's also changing over the last few months, where bringing Jo in, giving more opportunity to Katie to develop her skills. But in those first 12 to 18 months, I wasn't just a recruiter, which I was used to being, or leading a small team. I was the marketing person. I was everything. I was leading the finances. I was leading all the back administration functions. And it's a bigger drain than I think anyone could imagine.
Yeah,
it's a massive drain on your time. And, if you have a problem with something, it could take a few hours to resolve. Whereas I'm used to just being a recruiter, just talking to my candidates, talking to my clients, doing the odd social media post maybe once a week. Whereas now, marketing our business is massive, and it's something that we have to focus on daily, sometimes as much as our day job, because it's where we get all our inbound work from.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's probably the biggest challenge I had. And I feel more on top of that now, and I feel au fait with it. And I love all the different elements, but I also have handed some bits off which I wasn't doing the first 18 months.
Yeah, it's needed. You could invest your money like other firms and bring in someone that can help you do the recruitment, and that's fine. But then ultimately, if you can get someone to take all the support and admin and everything away from you so you can focus on the recruitment because you're obviously good at it, then that's probably a bit more of an investment that's probably well earned, in the sense of you'll see the return a lot more on doing that than hiring other people. And a lot of businesses, especially what I see in Rec to Rec, like a lot of companies bringing people in and for fun, and they just bring them in. They're so busy, they can't train them. They don't have any time for it because they're doing everything else. They've got no support. And it's just like, wow, like generally,
it's not going to work.
It's set up to just fail, unfortunately. Yeah, of course. It's a problem. But no, look, Karen, it's been amazing speaking to you. I've made loads of notes here. I've got some, good insight to what you do, what you're all about, what your plans are. Last question, if anyone's listening to this and they're based where you are, where are you based?
We're actually based in Newcastle under Lyme in Staffordshire.
Newcastle, fine. If anyone's in Newcastle listening to this, and I do have a big network in that space, what do you want to see from someone coming into work for you? Who's the most ideal employee that you could bring in?
Someone that's got grit, someone that isn't afraid to work hard, because that's the position we're in right now, but someone that's also open to new ways of working, Elliott, that's got a creative flair, because picking up the phone and recruitment isn't going to win you the next job, in my opinion. You've got to have more to you than that. So if you're not prepared to make a video, if you're not prepared to put yourself out there on a personal level and show people the human side of who you are, it's not going to work here.
No. Fine. So you want to see a lot more of an outspoken, social media led, marketing led kind of person in recruitment?
Yeah. I want to see the person behind their job. Does that make sense? I want to see everything. Yeah.
Fine.
So definitely that side. It suits us. And it was part of the process when we hired Jo. If someone didn't believe in something other than just your job spec, it didn't work. We couldn't do it.
This is the way the market is now. You need those people. And I think one of the things that I look out for, and I have been recently, is, how active are they? How outspoken are they being? Are they loud? Are they confident? And do they have the ability to, they're not worried about saying or putting a status out, even as something relevant to what their job is. Yeah.
Having an opinion. That's it. You've got to be brave enough to have an opinion and put yourself out there. You might be judged. Someone might disagree with you, but that's okay, because it's all about conversation.
Yeah.
And what's the job of a recruiter, Elliott? We are having conversations. That's all it is. We're just being human.
Exactly. Fine. Well, if anyone's listening in and they're interested in working with yourself, Kerri, then feel free to reach out directly. I'll be pointing everyone in your direction anyway. But I think it's been great speaking to you. I've got some, as I said, some fantastic notes. It's been good to get to know you and your business. If anyone's got any questions, I'll be putting your details on the, I suppose, everything on all the podcast channels, all the social media content, so they can reach out directly. But other than that, I'm sure I'll speak to you soon. And, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Karen. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Awesome chatting.